Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are tuning in to watch this video. The month of May is known as Mental Health Awareness Month, and we want to give special significance and recognition to the mental health of all of God's people, because God's will is that you would prosper and be in good health, and that includes your mental health. But if we're honest with ourselves, we are in the middle of a major mental health crisis. 1 out of 6 children between ages 6 and 17 experience a mental disorder each and every year. 1 out of 20 adults experience serious mental illness each and every year. 50% of all mental illnesses emerge before a person is even 14 years old, and 75% before they are in their mid-20s. Unfortunately, too often the church has been too silent about mental illness, and many have suffered in silence, been in shame, and not felt that they could even be honest and reach out for prayer with how they were suffering. But this occurs no more. We are blessed to have a mental health ministry known as Body, Mind, and Soul. We are blessed here to have members in our church who are singing from the mountaintops on the goodness of God and how God has been able to work with them, help them, empower them, and bring healing to their mental illness. And today, one of our very own members, Joan Phillips, and her son Jamal are going to testify about their journey and their struggle in a way that hopefully will empower others and speak life so that you will know that you can have life despite whatever you are facing, an illness in your body or an illness that is a part of your mental state. And so now we will tune in and hear this powerful testimony from Sister Joan and Brother Jamal.
In 2000, the year of 2000, I came up to the altar in reference to my mental illness, which is defined as bipolar disorder. Back then, I didn't have a closer walk with God. I didn't know where to turn to. I was battling this disorder since 1989. But I didn't know where to go to, so I came up to the church and I was just crying and crying and crying. Didn't know what to do. I wasn't taking my medicine like I should, and I wasn't seeking counseling back then in 2000. And here and now, in 2022, 10 years ago, I got a closer walk with God in battling my disorder. It was hard to go through. It's just like with somebody battling any other disorder, you need medicine to control it. And I wasn't taking my medicine as required by the doctor. It was a tough time. I was experiencing the highs of bipolar. You have two sides. You have the highs, which is mania, and the lows, which is depression. And I was facing the mania side, and I was going countless days without sleep, couldn't do anything, just riding my car for hours, just doing things that I wouldn't normally do. I was going up to strangers and offering them rides, just doing things out of the ordinary. But after experiencing a closer walk with God and being hospitalized for numerous amount of times in 2012 for the mania part of bipolar, I was very, very frantic. I had the opportunity of just going through a bad time with my illness. And in 2012, I was hospitalized many times because I didn't take my medicine until one time in November of 2012. I took my medicine when I was in the hospital, and the doctor told my son Jamal that I wasn't getting any better. They didn't know what was going on. By that time, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd, trusting everyone to be my friend, which wasn't. And they did some things, some evil acts towards me, but through it all, I know that I had to depend on God, because my grandmother gave me Psalm 37 as a young child to go by when things get hard. She told me to read Psalm 37. Fret not thyself because of evildoers. And by reading that psalm in that hospital in November, I started getting better. And it wasn't overnight, and it wasn't a walk in the park. It was a hard blow that life dealt me. But with Jamal and the doctor's help, I was able to get through it. And I didn't know about how Jamal, with all he experienced and how it affected him, I didn't know how bad until I wrote this book called Bipolar, and me and Jamal introduced me in the book, and I'll let him tell his part of how it affected him.
I do feel that I also have a unique perspective, being the child of a mother who has a mental illness. I can say for myself, growing up, I didn't have any friends or other family members, at least that I knew of, whose parent had a mental illness, right? So it was very difficult, not only because my mother was frequently hospitalized, but also my father was not in my life. So there were several long periods of time, sometimes a couple of days, sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes a few months, where I didn't have my mother or father in my home. My mother was hospitalized all throughout my schooling. First grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, the summer between 8th and 9th grade, 10th, 11th, 12th, all the way up to college, every single year, and sometimes multiple times. We got to 2012, we got to 2007, and between 2007 and 2012, she was doing so well. And I thought, okay, God, maybe we finally figured this out. Like maybe, okay, everything's okay. Like maybe we'll have a normal life now. And in 2012, I was in law school, and she was hospitalized again. And it kind of shocked me, because it was my last year of law school. And I thought we figured it out and we were moving on, like, you know. And it was her worst hospitalization. After all the years that I just described, it was her worst hospitalization. The nurses and doctors said they would call me and tell me, we've never seen her like this. And I had never seen her in the state that she had been in. And that's saying a lot, because there were several difficult times in the past, but this time it just seemed like nothing was working. Like the medications weren't quite working, and there was nothing that was working out. It was difficult because I was in the midst of preparing for law school exams, which are difficult in and of itself. And I would travel back and forth from University of South Carolina School of Law, where I attended law school, in South Carolina, the MUSC psych ward, every weekend to visit her, and just to try to talk with her and spend some time with her, and just to try to give her hope, because she kept saying, I'm not gonna ever get out of here. She doesn't know she's gonna get out of here. She kept saying, like, the doctors, they're not letting her out. They're doing something to her. They're trying to kill her. I'm thinking, oh my God, like every time my phone would ring and I saw the hospital number, I would think, oh my God, are they telling me? Are they gonna call me and let me know that something happened, that she didn't make it? I was nervous every single time. This would happen for weeks while I'm studying for exams, traveling back and forth. But I'm telling you, only because of the grace of God, only because of the grace of God, I was able to get through that time. It's one thing, even when my mom wasn't well, whether she was well or wasn't well or in between, since I was little, she always preached about put God first, then family, then education. And I'm so thankful that I did have family. I had family to help me during those times because, of course, there's no way I would have gotten through that alone. So God did provide. My grandmother, my late grandmother who took care of me, and my aunts, they were certainly there, but it's just nothing like your mother. It's nothing like your mother. No one else could quite relate, because my family members, it was their sister or their cousin or their aunt. But it was my mom who was constantly, I felt just locked up for months and months at times. So I often felt isolated, I often felt alone. But during that last time, again, I thought we had figured it out. During that last time, I was like, wow, I don't know if she's gonna get out this time. Honest to God, at that moment, I did not know if she was gonna get out the hospital. And I would just call her and I would pray. We would read Psalm 37. We would do all these different things. And I would just, I would try to have hope and try to believe and try to fall back on all the things she taught me and all the things, from growing up in church. I believed in God, right? I believed, but it just was getting difficult the longer she stayed in there, the longer she stayed in, and the worse she seemed to get. Literally, she seemed like she was getting worse. And one day I came home from my law school classes, and I thought she was getting better. I was like, oh my God, like maybe she is gonna get out. I had hope for the first time. And when she called me and she started talking to me, and it just was things that she was saying, and it let me know that she was not well. It was the complete opposite of what I thought. She actually sounded even worse than before. So at that point, I thought everything was over. I was ready to give up. I said, oh my God, I don't know what else to do. So I came home, and I was in law school. My law school roommate wasn't home. No one was there. I just came and I opened the door and I fell to the ground. I fell to the ground just screaming, just crying like, Lord, help me, please, God, help me, please, please. I can't take this. I can't take this. I can't do this. I can't do this, God. I cannot do this. Like, please get my mom out of this hospital. Is she ever going to make it out? Is she ever going to make it out? And so in that moment, it was difficult, but it was exactly what I needed, because I realized in that moment I was holding everything in. So I was giving some things to God, right? But not all of it. I was still thinking, okay, maybe if I can talk to her for another hour or two, if I stay on the phone 2-3 hours, I got exams coming up. If I can go and visit her every weekend, maybe she'll be able to get up. Maybe everything will be okay. And nothing was working. Nothing on my own accord was working. But when I fell to my knees, literally fell to my knees, sobbing on the ground, there was no one there but my roommate's dog. He was a black lab named Homer. He was there and came to console me. I just hugged him and embraced him. And that's all I felt I had in the moment. And God was there with me. God was there with me, and I just released everything. I'm like, God, I can't take it, please. And from that moment, I felt better. I let everything out, and literally that day forward, that moment of true release and true surrender to God, that moment is when things started getting better. And I was shocked. Like, she literally called me that day and sounded normal. We were having a normal conversation, and I was just like, wait, like this is not the same person I talked to earlier today. And every day subsequent to that, she got better and better, and eventually was released from the hospital. I had just finished up my law school exams. She was set to get out on I think it was on a Friday. It was on a Friday, and I wanted to pick her up, so she stayed in an extra day. So I finished up my law school exams on that Friday. That Saturday, I drove to Charleston to go pick her up, and I will never forget that moment. We were literally sitting as we are when we got inside my car. I just embraced her and just hugged her, and we just bawled, crying. And it was me, my mom, and the Lord in that moment. I was just so relieved because I never thought I would see her out the hospital again. And that was in 2012, and we're now in 2022. And she has been hospitalized since.
For someone who is not taking a medication and not taking it seriously, I beg you, I plead with you, take your medicine. God put the doctors and nurses here for a reason, and the scientists to make the medicine. Take your medicine. You can live a productive and prosperous life with bipolar disorder or any other mental illness. Take your medicine, nothing wrong with that. People take medicine for diabetes and they control their sugar level. People take medicine for high blood pressure to control their high blood pressure level. There's nothing wrong with taking medicine for mental illness. You can still be happy and live a life like Jamal and I are living. Look at me, I'm working. I drive my own self to work. I go any place I want to go. But I know that I had to surrender to God and say, God, if you want me to take this medicine, I'm going to take it because this is the only way I can live a life with you, then I'll do it. So please take your medicine. It's not the end of the world. I'm happy because God got me happy, and I'm happy for the medicine. So just take your medicine, please. I wrote a book. I started in 2017 and finished in 2021 and got it published in 2022. It's called Bipolar and Me. And it's a simple read, just giving you the facts that what all I went through and how I was able to triumph through God's help. And I'm telling people this book is for everyone. Someone who don't have a mental illness, someone who has a mental illness, and someone who's just curious. How is this crazy person going to get through life? I wrote this book for many of you, and I pray to God that it helps you to know that you can't stigmatize people with bipolar or any other mental illness, because you don't know if that person may be you one day or someone in your family. But just trust in God. The book is mainly about my steps and my walks with God through bipolar and me. And I hope that it educate you and let you know that you can live a productive life. But bipolar and me, for me, it is a therapy that I have to read every now and then. I read it over for myself to let me know that this is where you've been. Now look where you're at. You're working. I enjoy my life, and I enjoy what I do at work. I help people with mental illness and other disabilities find a job, and I help train them on the job. So I'm doing something that I can relate to. So I wrote this book so others can know that. Yes, this person who was called crazy, look at where she's at now. But it's called Bipolar and Me. When you get a chance, go on Amazon.com where you can find it. Joan Phillips, Bipolar and Me.
My hope going forward is that everyone will be put on the same platform. Everyone will be looked at equally. That there will be no disparate treatment. That we will look at people for who they are. We'll see the God in them. We'll see each other as God sees us. That we'll all be able to see each other as God sees us, as beautifully, fearfully, and wonderfully made. Not looking to things that are beyond their control. Not looking even to physical characteristics or mental illnesses, but looking at the quality of that person and seeing them as equal and seeing them as able, putting them on the same platform. That is my hope for the future, and that we can just destigmatize mental illness, bring everyone to the table. That is my hope. That is my hope for the future, and I think that we can get there, starting with the release of Bipolar and Me, having these conversations.
My hope for the future going forward is for people with mental illness to not get stigmatized how they do. Because when I first got diagnosed, I was ashamed of having a mental illness for the fact that people would call you crazy and whatnot, wouldn't want to deal with you no more. But when I was writing this book and as I released the book, I lost some friends and I even gained some friends. Long-term relationship with friends I've lost just because I released the book. And then I have a chapter in there called So-Called Friends, because these so-called friends were with you when you are okay, not in the hospital or whatever. But once you're in the hospital, you don't see them. But my main hope is to make sure you you get with a church, a biblical-based church, someone who you know that you can talk to who believe in God, to get your hope in God and let God know that you are ready to surrender to Him no matter what you're going through, what kind of sickness, what kind of disease, or what's going on in your family, or what you cannot see. Let it be known to some individual, a counselor, or whatever, a doctor. Let them know that you need help. And there ain't nothing wrong with asking for help, because counseling is a good tool. We don't hardly use it, or when we do use it, we think something bad about it. But seek counseling and take your medicine and hope for the best and pray to God, because prayer works. Prayer works. I'm a witness of that. I'm praying throughout my whole life. Prayer works. And just trust in God. Lean not into your own understanding. Trust in God so that you can deal with whatever you're going through, whether it's cancer, mental illness, whatever you're going through, trust in God. My hope for you is to trust in God and try to have a faith of a mustard seed, and you will excel. You will do anything you want to do. God is possible. There is nothing impossible about God. God can do all that you can see, you can hardly see. God can do it. We're already victorious. So we already can see that light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, yes.
No matter what you're going through, that light is lit. You can see it if you put your trust in God. And that's my hope for you, to just trust in God.